Good evening, everybody. Hope all is well with you. Before I get started this evening, I just want to thank the elders for letting me being able to get up here and speak tonight. And I've learned a lot from this lesson, and hopefully it'll benefit you as much as it benefited me. I also want to thank all the other people who went to see me at Montrose the other night. I was very thankful for all that, and y'all are in luck. You get to hear the exact same lesson yet again. So hopefully I won't stumble through it as bad this time and get a little better. Or as my dad said, don't sound like Darth Vader because I was so out of breath. But our title for this evening is Running the Race. If you'll please turn me to Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. That'll be our text for this evening. Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. It was said the great racehorse, man of war, and for those of you who don't know who that was, he was a racehorse from around 1910s and 1920s. Learned a little history, too, by doing this lesson. See, being homeschooled ain't too bad. We know stuff. But it was said that some horses led him at the first turn, some led him at the back stretch, a few led him at the far turn, but no horse ever led him in the final stretch. Some Christians run nobly at the start of the race. Some do well halfway, but blessed is he who makes a good finish. The race we're running as Christians is a little different than most races, considering we don't know when our race is going to end. Of course, common sense tells us that we're closer today than we were yesterday. Also, Matthew 24:36 tells us that no one knows when our race is going to be over except for God. In our text I just read a moment ago, the Hebrew writer sets forth 4 things that we must do to finish our Christian race. Number 1, put God first. Number 2, throw off the sin that entangles us. Number 3, persevere. Number 4, keep your eyes on Jesus. Number 1, put God first. One of the very first things we must do as Christians is put God as our number 1. In Hebrews 11, we see how the heroes of faith done this, and they pleased God by doing so. It's like with Abraham in Hebrews 11, 8 through 12. He was called away from his home, and he didn't know what was going to happen. He just had faith in God and trusted it was going to be okay. So he went on. He went to his land, the land of Canaan, and And eventually, by doing so, he pleased God, and he blessed him with a son, and ended up making a great nation. It's just, just imagine what we can do if we have that much faith in the Lord. Also, in Hebrews 11:6, it tells us that without faith, it is impossible to please him. So if we don't have faith as Abraham did, then we've already failed our first point. Now, there are several things that people can put in front of church and serving God, whether it be sports or going to the lake or hunting, fishing, so on, which in and of themselves are not bad things. I love doing all those things. I love playing basketball with my friends, going fishing with my dad, going to the lake and swimming. Those are all great things. But as soon as they get in the way of our relationship with God, we must either cut them off completely or change when and how we do them. Let's turn to Galatians 5:7. Galatians 5, chapter 7. You ran well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? Paul is asking us here in Galatians who or what stopped us from running our race. A person could just as easily stop us in running our Christian race. It's not always an activity or a thing we do. Let's just say you have a friend who doesn't go to church and they do things that you know they shouldn't. And they just try to get you to do those things too. But you know you shouldn't do them, but they're your buddy and your friend, and you just go hang out with them anyways. And they eventually just get you to try just a little bit of what they're doing. Just a little. Oh, a little bit won't hurt is what they'll say. Then you eventually try it, and you end up enjoying it. And you know it's a sin, and you just don't like it, but you just like it too much. And then you end up just completely turning your life all over it, and you just end up going away from the church completely. That's why in 1 Corinthians 15:33 it tells us that bad company corrupts good morals. So we have to be careful who our friends are and be careful what we do. That's why I'm so thankful to have great Christian friends here with Ethan and Cam and Jaron and Gavin and Zane and Reagan, and it's great. They're really good influences for me, and I'm very thankful for them. Let's move on to the next point. Number 2, throw off the sin that entangles us. Sin is the poison which may need for God's remedy, the blood of Christ. It stands to reason that if we're going to be partaking of this medicine, that we must stop drinking the poison. Which, Romans 3:23, it says that all fallen short of the glory of God, which we've all drank from this poison at one point or another. It's just going to happen at some point eventually. We're not perfect, like it says in 1 John 1:8-10. It says, if we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. One who keeps drinking of the poison and of the ways of life will not even qualify for the Christian race. Us as Christians cannot live a perfect life. We're going to sin. That's just who we are as people. Hebrews 10:26-27, it says that if we willfully disobey the word after we receive the knowledge of the truth, then we need to be fearful of the judgment that's coming. Thankfully, God has given us a way out of that sin, the blood of Christ. Also, 1 John 1:7 says that if we walk in the light as he is in the light and have fellowship with one another, then the blood of Jesus Christ will cleanse us from all sin. Also, Ephesians 1:7, in him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins according to his riches, to the riches of his grace. Okay, next point, number 3, persevere. The race we're running as Christians is no sprint. It's a marathon. When I think of perseverance, I think of Cal Ripken Jr. And for those of you who don't know who that was, he was an 80s and 90s baseball player who played shortstop and third for the Baltimore Orioles. And he holds what I would say is the most unbreakable record in sports history. He played 2,632 consecutive games in a row. That's a little more than 16 seasons without ever missing a game. That's about as many years as I've been alive. To me, that's just insane. That's just sheer determination for the sport that he loved. How many of us have gone 16 years without ever missing a service? I know sickness happens and things come up, but just for the example, bear with me. But are we that way in our Christian race? Do we have that much want to and determination to get to heaven, no matter what the cost? Because if we don't, maybe we shouldn't be running at all. It's like in sports. Your coach and the crowd know when you're not giving 100%. No, I know I don't like playing with somebody who doesn't give 100% when on the court. It's the exact same way in our Christian race, too. It's just easy to tell when a Christian isn't trying. Whether they just come in on Sunday morning 5 minutes late, don't even show up to Sunday night or Wednesday night and just don't do any extra. Or whether it be a pew sitter who just comes up and he goes to church all the time but doesn't get out of their comfort zone. They might count or do something every once in a while, but they just sit there and don't do much. You just don't get out of their comfort zone. And it's not good on the church, not good on them. It's very displeasing to God if you don't give 100%. Romans 3:3-5, we read that tribulation produces character. We'll go ahead and read those verses too. Romans 5:3-5. And not only that, but we also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance character, and character hope. Now hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who is given to us. Now, we might not go through as bad of tribulations as we see like on the mission trips and stuff with like India and China Christians who are thrown out of their homes and abandoned just for trying to obey Christ and just doing a different religion than their parents did, which we don't really have that same problem in America unless your parents are just plain crazy, which mine are pretty crazy, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do that to me. So I don't think I got to worry about being thrown out of my home for obeying Christ. But we do have our own problems in America. We have many distractions we have to watch out for. Hebrews 10:36-39 explains that we must be patient to receive the promise that is waiting for us. It also says that whoever draws back, God will have no pleasure in him. Don't give up on the Christian race. Okay, time for my last point. Sorry if you have a headache or anything. I got some Tylenol in the back if you need it, so hopefully it ain't too bad. Okay, number 4, keep your eyes on Jesus. I would say this is probably the most important point of them all. Because if we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, like it says in Hebrews 12:2, then the 3 things I've already mentioned will fall into place effortlessly. When we take our focus off of him, all kinds of obstacles get in our way. It's like Peter in Matthew 14:30. He had his eyes on Jesus. He was walking on the water. All things were going great. And as soon as that wind blew, he took his eyes off of him. He had an obstacle get in his way and began to sink immediately. It's the exact same way in today's world, too, as Christians. We can have our eyes on Jesus. It's all going our way. And as soon as that wind blows, we start to sink. Another person who took his eyes off the Lord was Solomon. When he first began his rule, he walked in the footsteps of his father David, who was doing really well, and everything was going great. But like most men, he got distracted by women. Of course, happens to the best of us. But it ended up him turning away and worshiping idols and doing all sorts of bad stuff. It's just crazy what a woman will do to you sometimes. It's crazy. Something that always helps me keep my eyes on Jesus is thinking about what he done for us when he died on the cross. And that we may have a home up in heaven with him someday. And that's what keeps me going. I don't know about you guys, but I want to finish my Christian race and be one of the best racers to ever do it. Quick recap, then I'll get out of y'all's way. So we have our 4 things we need to focus on. Number 1, put God first. Don't put worldly things over him. Number 2, throw off the sin that entangles us, even if it's something we enjoy. We just got to get away from it. Like it says in Matthew 5:29 and 30, if your eye calls you to sin, pluck it out and cast it away from you. Number 3, persevere. Our Christian race isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Number 4, keep your eyes on Jesus, and all these things will fall into place. If there's anyone here tonight who has not begun their Christian race, then I plead that you do so. There are plenty of people here who would absolutely love to get you started. Or if you have public sin in your life, and you need to make right and confess that you do, then please come before it's too late. Together as we stand and as we sing.